Good morning, and you're very welcome to this session of Enterprise University. And we've reached the final lesson, lesson 10. And if you've been with me all along the journey since last October, super well done for staying on board. And I hope that you've taken away some valuable information that's helped you in your day-to-day role within your organization. So kind of today is the culmination of everything that you've learned to date, and we'll just take a look around the platform in terms of reporting and where you can make the most of the data that's been going into the system on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, let me just share with you today's agenda and just remind you about the curriculum so far and the journey that you've reached so far. And of course, as always, if you've missed any of the sessions and would like access to a previous recording, you can check out any of the recordings on our website, and that's enterpryze.com. And if you click on resources, and then Enterprise University, you'll get access to the previous recordings. But I'll remind you again once we get to the live demonstration, and I'll remind you where all the information can be accessed easily for you. So let me just start by sharing my screen. So just bear with me 1 second, and we'll start by sharing the presentation just to remind you about the journey that you've reached so far. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. And this is now module 10 of the university. So if we just show you exactly where we've reached to date in terms of the curriculum, come through a long journey, quite a lot of detail, of course, in some of those modules that you can see there on screen. And we've reached the final destination, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the reporting and the grids. So that's a culmination of everything that you've learned in all the modules. Where does it lead to next? Being able to retrieve the data and understand the data that's gone into the system with all of the modules that you've been using every day of the week, or maybe perhaps in particular around accounting and banking, maybe you're only touching on those once a month, but where can you get access to information to report on that data? I'll also give you an introduction to another piece of reporting that we have available as well through our Excel reporter. Maybe you've already heard about this, but I will also do a little demonstration just to give you an insight as to more information that you could take out of the system and analyze further. So just today's lesson, very simply, this is going to be shorter than the previous lessons, you'll be glad to hear. So we'll just do a quick recap on module 9, what we covered off in terms of expenses. We will just a quick reminder of the importance of reporting, very similar to what we had at the very start in that very first module about the importance of master data, because that's where it all comes from. So making the most of the grids, so where you can create and use filters within the grids, but save them for continuous use. So whether that's just for yourself or within your teams, that you get access to the information that's important to you. We will look at, as I've said already, about Excel Reporter, being able to export the data to Excel to read and to analyze on the go. So of course, once you have the data out into Excel, you can obviously design any other reports that you require in terms of pivot tables, graphs, etc., to submit for end of year, for end of month, or end of quarter, whatever it is that you need. We will also look at reports that are available on screen. So throughout all of the modules, there is of course a reports menu. We also have direct reporting on screen in some instances through the dashboards. And of course, various on-screen reports available through certain modules, such as the accounting module, such as the items module as well. And I'll remind you exactly where all of those reports reside. So for each of the modules that we've covered to date, I would always have reminded you about where you can access information to report on it. So this will just bring it through as a full 360 view for you today. And of course, as always, a live demonstration as to how to access those reports, and of course, ideally how you can build a filtered report directly from the grids as well. So a quick review of lesson 9. If you were missing on lesson 9, of course, the recording is available on our website. We did a full expenses overview, how to set up expenses, the mileage rates, the expense users, the different expense items. So for recording, for example, mileage, travel, accommodation, parking, all those different expenses that perhaps are incurred by your team or employees or engineers out on the road, how the expenses impact your accounts, so in terms of, excuse me, in terms of GL account termination, how they impact your GL accounts and the accounting module. We also went through the very 3 simple steps on adding an expense, approving, and then posting or submitting your expense to the accounting module, which is basically where you create your final purchase invoice. We looked at what's coming next for expenses as well, just in terms of what you can do in terms of the mobile and mobile access, but being able to scan the expense receipts and bring them through directly on the mobile app itself. So we did a full demonstration on going mobile with expenses for users that are in the field. So it makes it very easy for everybody to record the expenses. There's no excuse. They can be on the road. They can be offline as well, of course, because it's mobile. They don't necessarily have to be online. They can create their expense drafts. And once they're back online again, they can submit those then to the system. So lots of functionality there. And again, if you've missed the lesson, do take advantage of the recording that's available on our website. So let's look at today's lesson, which is all about the importance of reporting. And of course, reporting is reporting on the data. So what is the data? The data in your case, of course, is master data. So that's our customers, our suppliers, our leads and prospects. Recording of all transactions. So whether that's your sales, purchase transactions, or even stock transactions, or what I've mentioned there already, your expense transactions, which ultimately do come through, of course, as a purchase invoice. So the importance of reporting is collection of all of that data, bringing it together to paint the picture of how well, for example, a particular entity or a particular section, or just even how well the company is performing. In addition to that, of course, it organizes all of your data. That's the importance of reporting. It brings all of that data together to analyze it better. So it gives you an easier picture to read, ultimately. So whether that's simply just a list of invoices as of today, a list of all the orders that have gone in, for example, for this week, or if you wanted to look at that, for example, isolated to a specific customer or a specific product, there's all various different reportings that can be analysed within the system. You can also choose the filters that suit your organisation. So again, it could be down to maybe the role within your team. If you're looking at a certain defined area of filters that are specific to you, perhaps you have custom fields that have been added to, number one, your master data or to your transactions. And you want to be able to analyze based on that data specifically. But that's where the power of the grids comes in, and that's where you can build the filter around those custom fields or around any of the fields that you have stored against, number one, your master data, or number two, your transactional data. Predefined reports obviously save time. So if you're using the filtered grids option, you can create the reports, save them, and you simply just come in whenever you need them on a daily, weekly basis, for example, and select the report name and run it. Obviously, with our predefined list of reports that we have as well, which are the PDF reports in the reports menu, you'll be able to access those on the go and on the fly whenever you need them. Perhaps we've done something custom for you as well. So they're your custom reports, and they will also be made available to you in the reports menu. So you're saving yourself time having to recreate that information every single time. And of course, as always, within all of the grids, and you've seen this throughout the system, and I've always reminded you about this even through all of the modules to date, the elliptical menu, which is your 3 dots that you have against each of your grids, there is always an option there to export the data to Excel. So if for any reason you want to take a certain amount of information out, you can always export it to Excel and of course apply any further analytics that you require against that data as you need it. Or you could use the Excel reporter, the piece that I'm going to show you as well, that can make that even easier as well to analyze. Reports can be indicative of how well the business is performing. So right down to cash flow, profit margins, bank, stock, overall performance. So we've seen that throughout each of the modules. So for example, on the accounting module, we saw a series of reports that paint a picture of how well the business is doing, such as the profit and loss, such as the balance sheet, what we have at a certain point in time, such as the trial balance, and the aging reports, so the age receivables and age payables. What do our customers owe us and what do we owe our suppliers? So it's all information that's relevant and relevant at a point in time as well to do with performance and cash flow. So always being able to identify based on the data that you've input and the transactions that you already have on the system, how well is the business doing? And of course, the banking, what payments are there, looking at the bank reconciliation screen to understand what transactions have already come through your live bank feed and then need to be matched up with your actual system transactions. And of course, then we have the series of stock reports that are available as well, such as the stock posting, stock valuation, batch and serial reports to understand where we have batch numbers and serial numbers available, where they can be tracked from the time that they've been received in to stock to the time that they've then been issued out to your customers. So the journey for the full audit and journey for that particular batch or serial number. So there's lots of different reports that can be considered throughout the system. So I would say to take the time to review and have a look at the reports that are there. Perhaps there's something that you've missed. Even in the live demonstration today, I'm going to remind you about certain things that you can access directly within the grids, for example, that you may not be aware of. And it's something I have already identified with a couple of different customers, that they're utilizing the grids, but there's certain information they've missed out on every time. That could make life just a little bit easier to be able to report on and to save them the time as well as creating those reports. So reporting through the grids is very simple for anybody that's been utilizing that to date. You simply, through the column chooser, so again, we're talking about the elliptical menu, those three dots that are always on the top right-hand corner of your grid. You can click in there to the column chooser. You can simply drag and drop columns to report on. So drag and drop columns to place on the grid so that you have the information on screen that's important to you. And don't forget that the grid that you create is your grid. So for each user, that's unique to each user. When it comes to creating reports through the grid, you will see that the filtered reports option gives you the ability to save it for yourself or to save it for everyone. So whether or not you want everybody to see this particular report or just for yourself. Of course, always remembering that everybody has specific permissions throughout the system in relation to information. So there's certain information that they will probably never see depending on whatever permissions that you have assigned to those users. And of course, as well as reporting through the grids to the filtered reports option, there's always that button to export to Excel. So for further analysis, you can export any of that information directly through to Excel. It will always take the information or the columns that you have displayed on the grid itself. Through the filtered report option, of course, you can set conditions. So is equal to, contains, is any of, so certain values, for example. So there's a couple of options that you can do while you're creating those filtered reports. You can also just search directly within the columns. A lot of our grids, we have an overall search button, but also within the columns themselves, you should be able to search within the columns. And of course, set your filter, so whether it's ascending or descending, depending on if, for example, it was a date field, if you want that from the latest to the oldest or vice versa. So we can save the filters if we're going to use the filtered report option. And of course, what we're doing throughout, and this has been an ongoing journey for the last year or so, is improving the interface around making it easier for you to use. And we will continue to do that. You've seen probably every month we have done a lot of UI changes. And the idea around those changes is to make the system easier for you to use, make the reports easier for you to access, and of course, more importantly, for you to build and save those. So reporting through the grids, just giving you an example here, just on a sales invoice grid. You can see there, just by looking at the invoices grid itself, As I've mentioned already, we have a search bar. So on the top left there of the invoices grid, you have the search bar. So we can search for words or values within the invoice grid itself. You can see over on the right-hand side, we've got the filter report button. So if I click on that, I'm going to obviously get an option to create or to run a saved report from there. We've also got the total button. And I'll show you all of this, of course, as we do the live demonstration. The total button will summarize the total of the grid that you have on display at that particular time. We also then have the elliptical menu, as I call it. So the three dots there, when you click on the three dots, you'll see all of the various grid options that you have available. So we can reload data, we can export data to Excel, column chooser. So this is what enables us to build out the grid that we require, that you require, for example. So this is the information that's important to you on a day-to-day basis. We can clear filters. So if we set certain filters and we're not seeing all the information that we require, start by clearing your filters and then start again to build up the information that you need. Or we can reset the grid, which resets it back to the default settings without all of the additional columns. We have a Teams option there as well on some of the grids, where if you've used the Teams options through the user settings, and we have an open report. This is one, in fact, I think that a lot of people may have skipped over, and this is all to do with the sales transactions. So it's an open report based on your sales transactions. I'm going to show you that obviously when we do the live demonstration. So it's just a matter of identifying reports that are already there, perhaps in front of you, and you haven't yet utilized them to see exactly what information you could get further out of the system. Then we have, of course, as we've seen throughout all of the modules, is direct reporting on screen. So whether that's reports on screen itself. So for example, we're here now in the items menu. And across the items menu, if you go across there, you will see four options. You'll see stock posting, stock valuation, batch serial, bin report. So these are what we call on-screen reports. These are reports that we've built into the system, and they will always be made available to you at all times. So they're going to give out relevant information within that particular module. You will also see on-stock reports within the accounting module as well. So just to be aware of, certain screens have certain on-screen reporting. And then, of course, we have to the right there, we have the reports menu itself. So within the reports menu, we've housed a number of PDF reports. So these can be exported at PDF or CSV. So these are a certain selection of reports that have been built for all of our enterprise customers. So if you're SAP Business One, you're not actually going to see these reports menus. These will be empty for SAP Business One unless we've written something custom for you to come through. So you won't see anything present here. So for Enterprise only, or our what we call our Mobile One customers, that's the original system, you will see a selection of reports available here within the reports menu. And of course, if we've written anything custom for you, they will also appear here as well. So what I'm saying to you is take a look at the reports that are there. Perhaps what's on screen isn't sufficient, and maybe we've already written the report here through the reports menu. So take a look at what is available and see if that will work for you as well. So they will display on screen. You can export those to CSV, you can export those to PDF from on screen, but you can see the information before you take any further action. So this leads me on then to Excel Reporter. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to Excel Reporter. This is an additional add-in. So this is part of an add-in that we have plugged directly into Excel itself. And the idea here is that you can directly export information to Excel. The connection between the data and Excel and Enterprise remains. So every time you open that particular spreadsheet where you've brought in, for example, let's say in sheet 1, you've brought in the original raw data, it will then look to update that data. You can then perform an update. So perhaps you want to change the parameters, and that might be to do with the date range of the data that you're bringing in. you might want to reduce the date range, for example, or you might just want to bring it up to date. Perhaps there's a couple of missing transactions that have since been posted within that date range and haven't yet been captured. So what is the purpose of this? So the purpose of this is to maintain consistent data. So when the data then lands in Excel, so for example, it's on spreadsheet 1 or sheet 1, then in sheet 2, you might just take that data and turn that into whatever pivot table, whatever graphic design, whatever it is that you require then to analyze that data further. And of course, it will always draw from sheet 1 to update that data and keep it up to date. So forevermore, the connection then is maintained with that particular raw data. And as I said, all you have to do is click on a button that will simply just update it and retrieve the latest information within that date range, or you can change the required data. So what is it we can do with Excel Reporter? Well, first and foremost, you sign in using your own Enterpryze login, which you can clearly see there on the screen. So it's your own Enterpryze login. Access is only to those organizations based on those that have been requested. So that's just something in conjunction with ourselves, that if you have requested access to Excel Reporter, you then let us know which organizations that you require access to, and then we give you access to the relevant objects within that organization. The available objects at present are accounting journals, CRM, customers, suppliers and leads, sales, orders, reserve invoices, credit notes, invoices. These are all header level information only for the sales transactions. Okay, that's header level information. You're not going to get the item information of exactly every line and quantity that was sold. For example, on the order or invoice, it's header level information only. The same with the items. You can import by item group, for example. And again, it's header level information only against the items. New objects, as we go to expand the Excel Reporter, will be added automatically when they are made available. So there are a couple of things in the pipeline, obviously, and production, of course, is one of those, just to let you know. I'll do a little demonstration just to give you an idea of exactly what it is that you can do with Excel Reporter as we move into the live demonstration piece, just to give you an overview of what you can do with the information when it comes through. So moving on, what we're going to do now is I'm literally going to jump in and do a live demonstration. So this is a very different session to what we had previously. We had a lot of slides in those previous sessions, but we're going to just focus in on the live system, make you fully aware of where all the reporting resides, where you can access the reporting and build in the grids, the dashboards, the PDF reports on screen, etc. So let me just start by sharing my screen. And there we go. Let me just share that with you now. Fantastic. So, oh, and of course to all of our Irish Lá Fhéile Pádraig, I hope you had a lovely day yesterday for St. Patrick's Day, and for anybody else who's touched by the Irish, welcome throughout the world. So just moving on here then to the live system. So if we start off here, for example, let's go to the sales menu, because this obviously is a great one to start with. So throughout any of the grids, just pull that down there. So throughout any of the grids, we start off here, and of course, again, depending on permission, whether or not you see the dashboard and of course, all the relevant information. So the dashboard itself is a reporting tool. The dashboard itself gives you a lot of information, key information, of course, on screen. So this is something that we would have touched on during the sales and CRM module. So just very, very quickly, because I'm not going to go through every dashboard, but you can see here just at a glance, even here on the sales dashboard, we can see the sales revenue. We can, let me maximize the screen there for you, just make it easier to read. We can see, for example, the sales revenue, but we also have a filter button. Excuse me. And the filter button, we can define what period of the sales revenue that we're looking at. So for the last 3 months, is it revenue or is it gross profit? I can look then and specify a specific product group or a specific salesperson. So even here on the dashboard itself, I can build a report just by filtering the information here on screen. And at a glance then I can see exactly what that information is and the value of, for example, we can see there January, we can see February, we can see March hasn't been so good so far. So you can see exactly where the information is building. The same here on the KPIs. This is reporting on information. So for example, we've got open orders, open quotes, open deliveries, open returns. And again, using this menu here, I can decide which 4 key pieces of information that I return here on the sales KPI. So already even on screen at a glance, I'm analyzing data and reporting on the data that you've input into the system. And it just makes it very easy that you can access it quite quickly directly from the dashboard. And of course, if I click here on open quotes, for example, it returns that filtered data directly through to the grid. So I can see, for example, where that data and that filter has been switched on, and I can look at, for example, just the open quotes. So it returns just that information to the grid for me at that point in time. So let's just go back to the dashboard. And of course, other information here, look, top sales, sales by product group, etc. And of course, any activities, if I'd scheduled those for today. We also get access to the reports menu. So this is the PDFs that I mentioned. They reside here as well. They reside here on the dashboard, but they are also here on the reports menu up here on the top right, third from the right-hand side of the screen. It's exactly the same menu as you can see there. Okay, so they're all the different reports that you can run. So committed stock, if you wanted to see what stock has been committed on sales orders, what stock is on deliveries, goods to be delivered. Like I said, this menu or reporting menu might differ for different customers depending on any specific customer reports that have been done. Analysis, sales analysis, gross margin analysis, quotes report. So you can see here, each of these reports, they have their own set of filters. They can be generated as PDF or they can be generated as CSV that I mentioned from the very, very beginning. So for example, if I was just to pull that back, maybe just go back to January, for example, quotes report, and I might just click on filter. Just a simple report to generate. I just want to show you something on screen. So you can see there the different quotes, the document number, the customer name, etc. So it gives you all of the information, the net value, the gross profit. So if I want to see the potential gross profit from that quote before I even bring it through to an order, that I can see exactly what has been done. And of course, I can print it, I can save it, so I can go out to Excel, I can look at the data, export to PDF, etc. So there's lots of different things that I can do at this point in time with that particular report, or I could have exported it to CSV as well. Perhaps you need to import it elsewhere, for example. So let me just close out of that on screen, and then of course I can begin again by exporting another report. So that's all coming directly from the dashboard to start with, and of course the reports menu itself, which I can access here, or I can access here on the reports menu itself. If you don't see the dashboard, that's down to your permissions. So that would be down to an administrator to give you permission to the dashboard, but perhaps there's a reason why they don't want you to see all of this information. So that's a conversation for in-house. Now, if we move on to one of the grids, so for example, let's go to the sales order grid. So we can see here there's a lot of different columns that I have on display. This is the one I use. It's a lot of different columns. And of course, I can make this work for myself and add and take away the columns that I do or don't need. So for example, I can search within the grid. So for example, if I want to look for everything to do with Acme sales, which is the customer, I can just go Acme, and you can see there, it's now just looking at everything for Acme. So if I wanted to look at a specific customer, or let's say you had a specific reference, a quote number, and you had created multiple orders, that you could also search for that here as well. So let me just X out of that just for now. So we can search for words or values directly within the grid itself, or very simply, I can come down to any of the columns and do exactly the same. So I can start off there by just saying everything to do with Acme, or I can simply just take that off and delete it. You can see there that once I activate directly against a column, you'll see there that the filter icon will change color as well, just to show me that that particular column, the filter is activated. Okay, so it's nice and visual. You know if something is switched on or switched off. And that's important too, because if you're looking at a grid and you're like, how come all the information isn't there? Why aren't I seeing my latest order or my latest invoice? Take a look at what filters you have set. Maybe you need to clear those and then start again, and then you'll see the information or the latest information that you have added. If we come over here then to the right hand side, we have the filter report option. And actually, sorry, what I should say to you here is that just as we're looking through the columns, for example, I'm just going to bring that over here. So there's a posting date. Not only can we click here and search within a particular column, we can also set conditions. So if I'm just hovering my mouse over the looking glass, so when I hover my mouse over the looking glass, you can see there I get an option to specify if this is equal to, does not equal, less than, greater than, and so on. Or I can reset. Okay, so already there are certain conditions that I can set directly within a column just from here. So if you find that easier to do, perfect. You can set those conditions and run them against any of the particular columns. Then over on the right hand side, we have the filtered report option. So what this does then is it allows us to build the common reports that we would like to have saved against a certain grid. So for example, I'm looking at my sales order grid at the moment and I can see already I've got closed orders, I've got open orders, I've got part orders, I've got different, all the various statuses are all showing all together. So what I'd like to do is just create even a very simple report that will just give me just my open orders. I just want the open orders, and every day I just want to come in and just run the open orders just to see it. So what I'll do is I'll start off here in the filtered report option. I'll click on create. I'll come here and you can see here we can start off by clicking on the plus sign here. I'm going to add a condition, and the condition is that the status contains or equals or is any of. If I do is any of, this is great because where you have a selection of drop downs for a particular column, which in the case of the status, that is true, it will then give you an option to choose which one or which two or three that you require. So I might decide, well, I want all my open orders as well as my part, because of course they're open as well still. So I might want to bring both of those in, but I don't want closed, I don't want cancelled, I don't want reversing. Okay, so let's just click on OK. Let's give this a name, open sales orders. Nice and simple. Let's click on apply. Let's make sure I'm getting the information that I require. So you can see there, the status has changed. I've got the part, I've got the open, I don't have any closed. Fantastic. Then I'm going to save. And what it's going to say is, do you want to save for me? So for me only, or save for all? That's everybody within the organization. So I'm just going to say save for me. And I'm going to go back here to the saved reports. And now you can see there, open sales orders. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to clear. I'm going to clear all of these filters. I'm going to push this back to where it was. I could have simply just come in here and gone clear filters. Okay, so we're back to where we started. Nothing is set in stone. So you can see there we're looking at closed, open and part. Everything is on view. But now if I go back into filter report, click on open sales orders. It now activates that filter. And you can see here at the top, this is the important bit, in the middle of the screen, it tells me open sales orders currently active. So I know there's an active filter running. So already it makes it easier for you to manage the data and report on the data quite easily and quite quickly. So you could have 5, 10 reports all listed here, all against the particular grid based on certain information that you have on the grid. Maybe there are values within a custom field that you might also want to report on, and of course you can use the filtered report to build on those reports. And if for any reason you want to deactivate that, all you have to do is simply click on the name of the report there. Can you see that? And in fact, it deactivates it again. Okay, but otherwise, I simply just run it. It's a 2-second job, and then the filter is active and reports on that data. So nice and simple. So the other thing I want to show you while we have that activated is this total button. When we click on the total button here, what it does is it generates a total at the end of the columns that have a total within them. So for example, you can see here net value, the tax, the total value, gross profit, etc. So these are the total values. Now I know I have a lot of columns reported on there, and of course if I extend that to show 100 transactions on screen, obviously the total is going to increase based on what you have displayed on screen at that point in time. And very simply, I just have to click it again then to generate that based on the current display. In addition to that, then if I want to change how the grid performs, so if I click here on the elliptical menu, I can clear all the filters, of course, as always, we know that. We can export this data, all of this data based on this filter, to Excel. We can use the column chooser. So the column chooser is great. The column chooser enables you to either display or take off display. So if I decide, well, actually, look, I've got too much on display here. I'm not using picker at the moment on the orders. I'm going to take that off. I can simply grab the picker column, pull it back, bring it back in here, bring it back into the column chooser. So you can take off the columns that you don't require. And of course, if you're looking for something specific, perhaps if you've got a lot of custom fields on a particular grid, you can do a search for the field name and make it easy then to find it. And of course, then to click and drag it onto your grid, and then it's maintained and saved then going forward. So just very useful and very, very simple way of managing the grids and reporting on the information that's important to you. Again, clicking on the grids here as well, I wanted to show you something here that I'm not sure everybody is fully aware of, and this is throughout all of the sales grids. There's an open report. This is a great one as well. In fact, it's probably built similar like what we saw there on the filtered report that I created. However, you can generate the open items report for sales orders, for invoices, credit notes, deliveries, sales quotes, sales returns, sales reserve invoices. So what does it do? I'm going to report in the local currency, so whatever that is for my organization. I'm going to click on generate. And I'm just going to show you what this report contains, just so that you're aware of it, because again, it may be something that you haven't utilized yet. So for the document number, this is the great thing. This is what it does. So it tells you, and again, this would be very relevant where you might have had a part delivery, for example. So document number, so sales order number 1 for that customer, obviously the days that are overdue, it's quite a long time overdue. Maybe if we even go up to the last page just to get something more recent. So you can see there's something that just got added today or the last couple of days. You can see there the posting date, the due date, the original amount, the open amount, so if there was a part delivery, and the net open amount and the open tax. So it's an open orders report or an open invoice report. So for example, the open invoice would be for something hasn't been paid yet to date. Open order is where it hasn't yet been delivered, for example, or if it has been part delivered and you still have an open amount on that. It's not open quantity, but it's open value. So it's at header level. So it's the open values for each of those transactions. And on the basis of a return, it's all your deliveries. It's open deliveries that have not yet been invoiced. So just a handy report to know that's available to you throughout all of those grids within your sales module. So lots of different reports that you can access. As I've mentioned, check them all out throughout all of the different modules. The sales one I've shown you there because that's quite a detailed one. Lots of different options that you can access. Lots of different potential reports that you could build through the filtered report option. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you into Excel Reporter just to give you a look at that. So let me just share my Excel screen with you. And just bear with me there 1 second. Fantastic. So here we are in Excel. And as you can see here, when you sign into Excel, this is all linked in with your Office 365 account. This is all has to be enabled directly through us and in line with your IT as well. So just to show you here, we have a button here which basically acts as an add-in directly within Excel Reporter itself. So when I click on this button here, if I just click on X there for the moment, if I click on this button here, it activates the login screen. So I'm just going to log in as this user. This is just a demonstration account just to show you this. And it's going to show me, for example, so you are now connected to Enterprise. You can report an information contained within the organizations you are associated with. So now we click on Next to start the data export. So let's click on Next. And for each list of organizations that you have, they would be listed here if they have been enabled. So this is just a demonstration. So let's just click on Next again. And then these are the objects that are currently available. So we have accounting, CRM, sales, and items. For accounting, just to show you this, you only have access to the journals. So all the debits and credits, all the journal, high-end information that has come through the journal entries can then be reported on or exported back into Excel. If I go back here, for example, to CRM and just click on Next, we have access to master data, prospects, customers, sales leads. Again, if I go back here and go to sales and click on Next, we have access to header level information on sales orders, sales reserve invoice, sales credit notes, and sales invoices. So that's at header level. You're not analyzing your product and your quantity. It's just the sales value at header level. And if we go back then to the items and click on Next, you can see there that we have access here as well to exporting the item information. Now, if we go a step further, we can specify the group, the product group. So we can get all the master information against the item out of the system based on the group, for example. So let me just show you here, for example, in relation to your sales. So if I was to check the sales here again and just click on sales orders, for example, I can specify the dates. So I can say this quarter. So you can see there we've got quick date selection, very similar to the quick date selection you've seen through the accounting module, where it's got a predefined set of date ranges. So this quarter, first of the year to the end of this month, for example. I'm going to ask it to retrieve that data. So obviously in terms of data, yes, there is, you can see there it's only 74, fantastic, download, yes. And now you can see what's happened. We've connected to that data. It's gone into sheet 1. I can see that all of the information in relation to the sales orders has come through. You can see there that in fact, if I look there at the sales order number, it's also got the URL links back directly to the actual sales order within the platform. So it has those URL links. But looking across the screen there, you can see all the master information, all the master data that's come across, such as contact currency, net value, tax, total value, gross profit, salesperson, any custom fields, for example, that were populated in the transaction at the time, the status of that transaction. So what I could start to do then on the second sheet here, for example, I could start to build out some data. I could start to build out some data analysis based on sheet 1, maybe creating a pivot table, a graph, whatever it is that I want to do, for example, on sheet 2. And on sheet 1, I leave the raw data. And every time I come back into the raw data, you will see that, so for example, if I was to save the spreadsheet, whenever I come back in, it'll say click below to refresh this data and change parameters. Perhaps I've been running it for this quarter. I might want to hit refresh. So I'm not looking to bring it back in again, but what I am looking to do is take in any additional information. I might want to push the parameters out. I might want to go back to But in fact, you know what? That's not enough for me now. I want to go back to the 1st of December and retrieve the data. Now that's going to update and change the raw data on sheet 1, which of course is going to affect the output on sheet 2, for example. But what you're doing is you're collecting the information, you're collecting the data, and it's just a matter of you save the spreadsheet, you go back into the spreadsheet whenever you want to refresh that data, and then your sheet 2 with your pivot tables and any other analysis that you've performed will always be there. And sheet 1 with your raw data can simply just be refreshed and updated and maybe change the parameters as and when you need to do that. So it's just another great way of directly plugging into your data, retrieving it, reporting on it, and analyzing it further within Excel. So it's another great way of getting access to information fast. So lots there to digest around reporting. This is something obviously, in terms of just even the platform itself, it's a good one just to take a look at all the reports that are there. Perhaps there's reports that you've missed. You didn't even realize that were there within the reporting menu, and particularly that one that I showed you there on the open reports within your sales menu, just to take a look at what each of those contain. So what I'm going to do next, let me just go back to, I'm just going to go back to, I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to go to another tab. I just want to remind you about where all the information is held in terms of accessing any of the previous recordings before I move on to any questions and answers that you may have. So just to remind you that all of the 10 lessons to date can be accessed here at enterpryze.com. Click here on resources, into university, and you get access here to all of the previous lessons. So if you've missed out on anything specific, make sure that you take a look at it here. It's up to date as of module 9, and of course I'll have module 10 added between today and tomorrow for you as well. And of course, as always, other great collateral that's there as well, around the help center, the roadmap, the demos. So the demos are great, key pieces of information around any of the new features as well that we've launched over the last number of months. And these are great, just little short product tours on how to step through the different features. In addition to that as well, in our About Us on our blogs, we also talk about every single monthly release that we go through. So every monthly release is here. So you can see there Artemis was our February release, and when you click into Artemis you will also get access to those story lanes and product tours to step you through the latest features, so do check those out. So what we'll do now is we'll just go along to see if we have any questions around the reporting module. I guess this is something that perhaps you need to maybe familiarize yourself with more, but let's just check to see if anybody has any questions, anything has come through. You're asking, can all figures be set as net of VAT? So obviously net of VAT in terms of the grid. So even looking here on screen and what I've displayed there on screen, when you're looking at the grids, you've got net value, you've got tax, you've got the total value. So you will see all three values come through from a reporting perspective. I'm not sure if that's where the question is coming from, but I guess that's potentially maybe where it is coming from. Maybe you've run a report in the reports menu and it's giving you the total, including that, the gross, and not the net value. So I'm not quite sure exactly where that question is, but maybe if you give me some context around it, that would be great, and I can answer that further for you. Okay. Any further questions, guys? Okay, so as I've said, the reports menu, oh, here we've got something come in. Can can the sales dashboard be net of VAT? Can the sales dashboard be net of VAT? So the sales dashboard is predefined. There's no control over net or gross values. It's predefined based on the values that are within the system. So yeah, the total open orders, I guess this is probably where you're referring to it here, the KPIs. These are all pre-built, so they can't be changed directly on screen. Unfortunately, there's no setting there to say net of or gross of. They are just pre-built based on the total values for those screens. However, for example, if you were to run, for example, the open quotes, and if you wanted to drill in and see the figures for those net value, tax, total value, so if you display those columns, and then if you run the total, so this total button that I've mentioned as well on the sales grids, that you can see the overall value for the gross as well as the net value as well. Just another question's come in there. So in reporting on figures on the main screen, so this is in relation to the very first query that we had, which was, can all figures be set as net of VAT? In reporting on figures on the main screens, can all figures be net of VAT? When you say main screens, is it the transaction screen or the grids? So for me, this is the grid here. So you've got the different columns. You've got net value, tax, and total value. And then within the transaction itself, you also have all of the different columns that you can display, which is line total before VAT, line total with tax, and you can also use the columns here to display the different, if you want, for example, the VAT amount itself to be displayed, you can use that columns to display it as well, and that's without VAT. And of course then here, then it's going to give you subtotal net of VAT, any VAT, and then any gross total. Does that make sense? So that's in both places. That's on the grid itself, and that's on the actual, directly on the transaction itself. You get to see all of those. Why can't we remove gross profit FC from sales orders grid using the column chooser? Okay. Okay, let me have a look at that for you. So why can't we remove? Okay, so number one, your gross profit settings. This is going back to our sales lesson on the settings. So gross profit display is controlled here first and foremost under module settings. So whether or not you display the gross profit, so whether or not it's hidden, hide gross profit on grids. So if you don't want to see it on the grids, there is a button here to hide the gross profit on the grids itself. So that might be something to consider there for that person that's asking about why can't we remove the gross profit from the sales order grid using the column chooser. So you might want to consider hiding that on grids so that you don't have that coming through then for all users. No, just the FC. Okay, no problem. Let's have a look at that. So if that's something that's happening, so we're on the sales order grid. Let me just come into that there at the moment. Gross profit. I've got gross profit FC. Let me just see if I can go to column chooser. Gross profit. I'm just going to just highlight that column just so you can see it. Gross profit FC. Let me see if that's behaving itself. Because I haven't got gross profit hidden, I wonder if I take gross profit off. Does it let me then take it off there at the moment? Okay. So let me take the total off. So lets me take the total value. In fact, it's both columns there. Thanks for letting me know about that one. I'll get that looked into. I'll get that logged with support and just get that verified for you. I have your name there as well. So I'll make sure that they come back to you on that. Is that okay? Let me have a look at that a little bit further. I wanted to see were those columns behaving as they should. It might be to do with the setting as well, but in saying that, if one is hidden, we wouldn't see them at all. But if they aren't hidden, I should be able to take them off the grid regardless of. So let me look into that one for you with support, and I'll get a response back to you. I have your name there, so that's fantastic. Thank you for letting me know that one. Thank you. Okay, great. Thanks for all those questions, guys. Anybody, anything else before we wrap up on today's lesson? Okay, super. As always, thank you so much for taking the time out, taking the time out of your day to attend these lessons. There will be something new to come. It won't be the same format that we've had obviously since October or over the last couple of years with the university. We are going to introduce something very new for you around learning and to make learning accessible to everybody on the go and in shorter chunks and nuggets. So this is something we are working on in the back end, and we hope to share that with you as soon as we can as to how that's going to look and how you and the rest of your teams can learn on the go, but obviously learn the key pieces of information, and perhaps there's something there that you need to focus in on that you know, haven't utilized fully to date as well within the platform. So just to remind you, of course, everything that you've learned to date, if you need any access, it's in enterpryze.com, and click on resources and you'll get access to all of those recordings. So guys, well done, and super well done, and thank you for all the time and energy that you've spent learning, and will continue to learn. Of course, that's the important piece. And if you have any questions at all, always reach out to support, to your account manager, to your consultant. We're always willing to help and to listen. And I'm sure some of you have also sent through requests and submissions as well to date that you've seen come to life within the platform. As always, look forward to seeing you on the next monthly update, which is coming to a screen near you soon. So we look forward to educating you further on the latest features. But thank you as always for attending the Enterprise University, and I look forward to sharing with you some more wonderful and great new educational content that will make life easier for you as well going forward. Thank you guys, and I wish you all a great rest of day. Thanks and take care.